Hey everyone, welcome back to Absolutely! Today I am joined by Neb from Neb's Good Takes over on Twitter. We're going to talk about the Flash finale and what we liked, what we didn't like, and why Neb seemingly hated it, because that's the only memos I've gotten. So I don't know how true that is.
I assumed you did as well. Did you like it?
I actually liked it. I mean, I went into it, and this is an argument I've had with Hassan for quite a while, because he likes to get on and just shit on the Flash right now. I don't like the idea of going into something like the Arrowverse and expecting it to suddenly get better. It's been shit for a while, so I go in knowing what I'm getting, and I enjoy what I can out of it. And that's kind of how I've taken it.
Yeah, I think you're a smarter man than I am. It's. I mean, I didn't expect it to be good necessarily, but it's just. I don't know. It's kind of like, I watched the Titans finale. It came out recently, right? And I felt really embarrassed the whole time. You're like, oh, it's finally gonna get good, and then it's Titans, so it doesn't, and it ends, and you're like, well, I guess that's it. And I was watching the Flash finale, and I was like, maybe the Titans one wasn't so bad actually. Like, by comparison, I just could not believe my eyes. I really couldn't.
I mean, for me, the Flash finale was par for the course. This is what season 9 has been. I was not expecting them to suddenly bring in good writers to finish out the show, or the budget was going to blow up and we'd get more than just colored lightning. Like, it was exactly what I was expecting. My only complaint was actually episode 2, but we don't normally do like through the full episodes. Let's go episode by episode at least, because we can kind of go over the general consensus. So the first episode I really loved because it felt like classic Flash, because it was just Barry. Barry got thrown in the past trying to figure out what's going on, ran into Thawne. Thawne didn't know what's going on. And then we got that scene that pieces all those time travel scenes together.
Yeah, that was incredible. I think that's why, because sometimes it does kind of get good all of a sudden. That was genuinely good. And so was the episode with Green Arrow before that. So it's like, okay, they're taking the final season pretty seriously. It's like, that's a really cool payoff for all of that. People have been waiting 10 years for that, basically.
Yeah. For an answer as to what happened. Who is that other Flash? Right. I know there's been so many theories. Like, well, he technically got wiped out of the timeline, or maybe he's from this, or maybe he's from that.
It's a retcon, but like, I don't care.
Yeah. So I really enjoyed that. And I do think that whenever they do an episode like this, where it is just Barry, it is just the villain. We're not dealing with Allegra or Chester or Cisco or Caitlin or Cecile or Joe or Iris. It's just Flash doing Flash stuff. I've always enjoyed those particular episodes. And I feel like this episode was just a great example of where the show can excel if it had just taken that to heart like 5 seasons ago.
Well, speaking of the side characters, then there's episode 2 of the finale.
Yeah.
Where Barry's in it for maybe 2 minutes.
The episode 2 reminded me what I dislike about the show. Like, Keone was the primary focus of episode 2. We got a little mention of Allegra. I think this is where we discovered Iris won a Pulitzer Prize, and we still haven't seen her work. So I don't know what she won that for. But
Jesus. I can't imagine it was legitimate at this point.
She paid off somebody.
It had to be. There's no way.
She hasn't done anything as far as I know. But yeah, the episode is pretty much about Keone and Mark, which I found to be weird. Like, why? So the chat, when I made my video on Comic Story and informed me, the comments, Keone was hinted at in previous seasons. You're the expert. Was she?
Honestly, maybe in season 7, but that's when I gave up. So possibly. No, Eric Wallace, the showrunner, had an interview after the finale, and he said that he actually planned Keone to be like a 2-season storyline. So he had to, like, congest it all into the final season. And it's just like, are you crazy? Like, it's not even okay. Allegra, Chester, they're still comic book characters. One of them is actually the showrunner's OC he made in 2010 for a Titans comic, so he's getting his own royalties. I would do it too, honestly. Good for you. But they're at least from the comics, And Keone is just this original thing out of nowhere, and it's so absurd. And she's a goddess as well. It's just, you really didn't have to do anything. Like, you could have figured out how to solve the problem some other way, man.
I mean, I saw that same interview where he said that she was intended to be a 2-season thing, and all the discussions about stuff he wanted to put in. And my argument against that is, well, we knew going into season 9 that it was going to be the last one. So even if you thought there might be a season 10, we knew season 9 by the time it started was going to be a thing. So why did Keone continue to exist? Just pull her out and don't even bother, you know?
Right. It's just the idea where he was very confident that there would be 10 seasons. He wanted to do all this crazy stuff later with Blackest Night or whatever. And he's just, it's pretty good that it ended when it did, I think, actually. Yeah. But, yeah, I don't even remember what else happened in the episode. It was just...
I don't either, because I remember it mostly being about Mark and Keone for the most part.
Right.
And then I think they had a little bit of thing with Allegra. I remember Iris got the announcement, and then just Barry's like, I'm back!
And then no, he's not.
And then I'm gone! It was like, what are you doing?
Oh, man. Yeah, and then episode 3 had... Well, it still didn't have him for like half of it, but I'll take it. Right, well, so the
episode 3 was building up Eddie. That was the focus, getting Eddie's backstory. What the hell happened to Eddie?
So, on one hand, I appreciate that it's like Eddie, but then also a sort of comic accurate version of Cobalt Blue from the comics, and it's this weird sort of mishmash of things. And it doesn't really make any sense, but you know, it's who cares, right? It's Flash, you know.
Right.
But yeah, I think it was funny. I think Eric Wallace gives direction to a lot of the villain actors to just act as insane as possible. And Rick Cosnet was kind of running circles around the rest of the cast. He was just screaming like he was in a theater production, you know. Like, he was so happy to be back.
I wasn't actually a fan of what they did with Eddie Thawne. I wish that it had just been he came back to life. Why? That's what I was hoping for, because I feel like they gave over the they basically gave him backstory just so that they can do the fan service of kind of linking the name a little bit better.
Exactly.
And I felt like it was just unneeded padding. Like the introduction of him in the episode 1, I think it was episode 1, maybe 2. And then the backstory, half the episode 3 was revealing more of his stuff. I really feel like we should have just focused on earlier. No, Eddie Thawne's back. He is Eddie Thawne. Because what they didn't really go into, they mentioned it briefly, but why did the negative Speed Force do that? What was the point?
Yeah, I don't think the negative Speed Force ever made any sense. I mean... So correct me if I'm wrong, but it's sort of like it just kind of exists to be evil, right? Like
yes,
it has no other purpose to like. There's no natural balance of things. It's just it wants to kill everybody. That's its goal. And so, like skipping ahead a bit to the actual finale, that was what had me like just shaking my head. Whereas Barry was sort of like, you know, we can coexist, we can find balance, but it's like, what's the purpose of the negative Speed Force in the first place? What's it gonna do if it's not just being crazy, you know? It's none of it. Just makes no sense to me.
That scene actually came out of the end of Joshua Williamson's run with Eobard Thawne, where he basically gives forgiveness to Eobard Thawne for everything. That's kind of what that scene was emulating. And that made sense because Eobard Thawne wasn't the negative Speed Force avatar, wasn't trying to do negative Speed Force. It was simply put, Thawne, I'm done. We're just going to keep cycling it. I'm just taking your memories and I'm forgiving you and you go live your life. But with this, like you said, it didn't make much sense because it's not like the negative Speed Force. Oh, you're right, Barry. Let's be a good guy. No, it's still the negative Speed Force. Eddie Thawne is still the avatar of it. It just leaves it in a weird limbo just so we can kind of have that I forgive you, Eddie moment, which is also weird because I kind of sided with Eddie for his entire argument. I sacrificed myself for you and no one remembered me. And then you took my wife and you took my life and you took everything. I was like,
he was still a little crazy from the negative Speed Force, but like, I get it, you know?
Yeah. Like Eddie wasn't wrong. And I'm like, Barry kind of screwed you over there.
And to be fair, you wouldn't expect him to come back, but yeah, it's pretty funny.
Yeah.
The other thing was, so Nora gets possessed by the negative Speed Force nest, and this is still when they have blue lightning, by the way, so they had it right the first time, but that's later. And Nora just beats the crap out of Barry, and Cecile shows up, first time, in costume as the iconic character from DC Comics, Virtue, and we all clapped, didn't we, Benny?
Oh, okay. I was like, I can't tell if he's joking.
I'm coping. That's what I'm doing.
Yes. Cecile is amazing as Virtue. I was about to Google, like, Virtue's a character that I totally forgot. How did I miss this?
It's funny. I looked into her. She was made by Gail Simone for a comic that honestly I'd never heard of before, and it seemed fine. It's just, yeah, it's definitely a choice for sure.
Yeah. I don't. It goes back, and I get at this point this had to just end this way because we even ended it with, by the way, Chester, you're also a meta now. Like everyone officially is a meta. We're just ending it with everyone has powers, and then Barry's just like, and everyone else has powers. Like why?
Yeah,
What are
and
you
at least
doing?
the Chester thing was from the comics. At least there's a foundation for that because he always had black hole powers.
Right.
And it's really bizarre that that's like the most comic accurate thing they've been doing. Other besides, they just really love Joshua Williamson's run as well. But he just plucked Chester out of there, so that was fine to me. And I never disliked Chester in the same way that I did the other characters.
Right.
But,
I always like Chester in
yeah.
general. I just find it funny that now
Right.
everyone has that was always
Yeah,
why
everybody
does
except
everyone
Iris.
need powers? Why do you need everyone with powers? You're not making the Justice League.
Yeah, it's the equivalent because Arrow did the same thing where no side character was not a vigilante after some point.
Yeah.
Like, nobody should just be a normal person anymore, which is very funny. But
The only
yeah.
person who never got powers, and honestly, I think it's because he got injured, was Joe.
Yeah,
I think it's because the actor got injured. Otherwise, I totally think he would have gotten powers at some point in these last seasons.
and even then he got possessed by the Native Speed Force, so like kind of like they always let them play with powers a little bit, like how Iris got speed occasionally. So like yeah, why not? Everybody just have fun. But yeah, so Cecile pulls a Doctor Strange, which was the boldest thing I've seen the showrunner do in a long time. And then yeah, so then the finale starts, I guess. Yeah, I don't even.
I mean,
know
it basically just boils down to Team Flash versus the League of, what did he call them?
I think someone made a joke that it was the Legion of Zooms, but I don't know if that's canon or not.
I didn't like that all of these supposedly big bad speedsters were defeated by the sidekicks.
Not only that, but so with Savitar, it felt particularly egregious because that is still just Barry, by the way. It's never acknowledged, but that is Barry.
He didn't even open up the mask and be like, look, I'm
Right.
Barry with the scar.
It might as well have just been like the Decepticon armor he's been wearing just gained sentience. Like, it wouldn't have made a difference.
Right.
And he stabs his own daughter and is just immediately, no hesitation or anything, by the way. It's I never really liked Savitar because that's just so absurd of Barry to even do that, even if he's driven to madness, right?
Right.
And then she's just able to phase out his big knife thing and stab him in the back, kind of, and then he just dies. He's gone, and that's it. He doesn't say anything ever again. They brought Tobin Bell back to voice him too. I hope he was paid a lot.
Which was funny because they brought like the same thing with Hunter got pretty much disposed of relatively quickly. He had like
They
two
all did,
scenes.
yeah.
Eobard Thawne, who was he defeated by?
Allegra.
Yeah, Allegra defeated Eobard. Okay,
She
sure.
went all Dark Phoenix on him and he exploded. That was crazy.
Then and then Hunter got defeated by the police. And who was the superhero that was there? I can't remember.
Thawne and Chillblaine.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Keone kind of like undid him. Like
Yeah, and Chillblaine, I thought it was really funny. Chillblaine was there the whole time, but if you go back, he actually didn't do anything the whole episode. He just stood there with his arms out, and he was just there to look pretty. Yeah, literally. He does
check
the
out
thing
my
with his,
abs.
yeah, the little thing with his gauntlets. Respect to the actor, by the way, because he actually does have to like film everything at night in Vancouver, like basically shirtless. So that was pretty impressive. But yeah, that was embarrassing.
Dude, he must have to like go do just like, all right, I gotta do like 100 sit-ups before each take.
Yeah, I think literally, I'm pretty sure he does the whole dehydration thing as well. Like, poor guy.
So yeah, that he was taken out. That was, and then who was the fourth one? Oh, Godspeed. That was Cecile, wasn't it?
Yeah. So suddenly Cecile is revealed that she can just fly. She flies now.
Yeah, she flies now.
Like, the audacity of Eric Wall. Like, where did that come from?
Well, the missing season 10. That's when she would have learned flight powers.
You're right. My bad.
We had to jump there, just like Keone has to be a goddess.
Yeah. So she starts flying, and then I think the funniest thing was that she still has just telekinesis more or less, but they didn't want to give her like any other VFX necessarily.
Right.
So she just like waves her hands at the Godspeeds and they just fall over. They're speedsters, by the way. They could snap her neck in 2 seconds like any other character, but whatever. So
right, like all of these supposed speedsters just went down. Just all right.
yeah.
We struggled with them for entire seasons, but now we can just one-shot them.
And it's so funny. I remember like somebody filming on set, and you could see like Godspeed falling off a cliff in the distance or whatever and smashing through a table. It's like, wow, that stunt guy. It's like, that's really cool. That's a nice stunt. I wonder what the context is of this moment. It's like, you could not have possibly imagined what was happening in this.
So then we have Cobalt Blue versus Barry, which is where he just stops it by being like, hey, Cobalt, we're not doing this anymore.
He takes Barry to a WWE match and puts him through like 17 tables and chairs. I thought that was hilarious. I noticed because it was the final episode, I think they were just fine with destroying all the sets because they were just going through all the furniture. Allegra blew up the Star Labs base. They were just having fun with that. So, I'm sure. And yeah.
I'm sure they had one take for everything. All right.
Right, yeah.
We're not rebuilding this. So.
Exactly. And I know this is like a silly complaint along with everything else, but it's the way that Eddie just calls himself Cobalt Blue, but there's no actual reason for that in universe. It's just because he's called that in the comics. But like why are you Cobalt Blue? Like, where did that come from? Like, you don't even have blue lightning anymore. Like
they also kind of established the Cobalt element, but there was never like
and that didn't make any
it's
sense
blue
either.
and I'm Cobalt, so Cobalt Blue.
Yeah.
Like,
and if you're gonna do the negative Speed Force thing, you already established that all that lightning is red, but then you have the blue crystal and you make it blue, but then you give them all red lightning in the actual finale anyway. It's so I don't think it was planned out very well, Benny.
I don't think so either, because I got a feeling season 9 was like, how much fan service can we go down giving everyone? Just like the Red Death thing. All right, we're going to do Red Death. We don't have Batman. We'll do Batwoman. Everyone's going to love that. There'll be no complaints.
And like, honestly, I'll stand by that's like not a bad idea. I actually think that's pretty cool. And like that show got done pretty dirty anyway. So yeah, give her a send off. But it was the way they did it.
Right.
Where it's like, because they would have had to do the same thing with Blackest Night, where with Red Death, it's the whole Dark Knight's Metal storyline, but they can't do that for like 30 reasons, so they sort of take an element from that.
Right.
And then Blackest Night would have been the same thing, where it's like we have Necron, but we can't do lanterns because that's just,
the entire basis of Blackest Night. We just want to recreate that scene where Barry's outrunning rings. That's all we want to recreate.
Yeah, no.
But we can't. They got to be something else because we can't use rings. So.
He would have gotten like a cosmic energy blue thing. Like, oh my god. Anyway, and then they're all defeated, and they agree to coexist, which doesn't make sense. And and then it's just they just go to the party at their house, right? That's about it.
They have the big party at the house, big send off for everyone, and then Barry decides to go make 3 new speedsters because in the past that has totally worked. Having other speedsters, like they've never gone evil.
The audacity. So. Okay, Eric Wallace said that Max Mercury was going to be in season 10, and that would have definitely been something. And like, cool. I mean, I don't necessarily mind like any of the 3 really. It's just very funny. Like, Avery Ho was also in season 8, so that's cool. Like that was actually set up. Then they just sort of pulled Jess Chambers out of their ass, like from Future State, and I think they're a very cool character. But like, that's so.
I found Jess Chambers' inclusion, I just found to be very awkward because Jess Chambers, they're very new. They just got created.
New.
There's so many Flash family members that you could have easily gotten to, but they're like, no, we want to put Jess Chambers in here. And I'm like,
just because of the timeline, it made the least amount of sense. They're specifically from like an Earth that got destroyed or something like that. They had to flee their own timeline. And like,
that's all I know. That's all I know about their origin is that they had to flee from their timeline, and then the storyline turns into them dating Aquawoman, I think.
Yes.
Is it Aquawoman? Okay, yeah.
And it's not a big deal. The show's over, right? Who cares? But it's just, I think it says kind of a lot. Where it's like I brought it up earlier. The Titans finale, as bad as it was, it felt final. When it was over, you got the feeling of closure in a sense, regardless of how silly it was. But Flash, because of the way it chose to end like that, it still doesn't feel over. Like the Arrowverse is gone now. It's over. You'll never see those.
I mean, they
again.
killed Ollie. So, but in
Right.
the Arrow, that ending happened. Legends of Tomorrow, we know,
Yes.
didn't get its ending. Titans got a proper ending.
Yeah.
Stargirl got a proper ending. But you're right. Flash feels like, we don't get season 10, but we don't care.
Right. There's no, like, it should be over, but it doesn't feel like it. And that's not, before the season started, I was expecting to at least cry during the final episode because this show has been very important to me for a very long time. But I was just kind of watching it like, it's like watching a car accident, right?
Yeah.
It's, and at least the final shot was it was fine. And Blake Neely he composed his best piece of all time, in my opinion, for that. So good for him. But yeah, he just runs off into the camera and smiles, and that's it. He's gone.
Well, it's just like the story's not over, but I wish there was
Yeah.
more, like you said, I wish there was more finale. I'm fine with us not like Flash quitting or anything. We can have him continue.
Right.
But the idea that they were bringing in Max Mercury, Just Chambers, because it just felt like more fan service. Like,
Yeah.
other speedsters that we never got to. Wouldn't it have been cool if CW didn't go practically bankrupt?
Yeah, because Eric Wallace specifically chose not to do the fan theory thing where Barry would become the own lightning bolt that struck him. I thought that was cool, but because Arrow already did that already with their hero dying, right? I don't think that's necessary to end every show like that. And I think if you just didn't do the thing with the other speedsters and you just had Barry go off and just imply that, he's just going to be a hero with a lot less troubles in the future, that's a nice send-off, in my opinion. Like, that's it.
It did feel weird. Like I've been kind of like just laughing about the 3 extra characters they added in.
Right.
For the same reason. I'm like, Avery, Max Mercury, and Jess, why'd you choose them? What are you even implying? Like,
Right.
what are we
And
hinting
none
at here?
of them make any sense within the context of the comics either. And again, that doesn't matter. But it shows kind of how like thoughtless it was. Where it's just like this person and this person. It's like, oh, yeah, okay, buddy, all right. And Wally wasn't there either.
Wally didn't show up, and Bart didn't show up.
No, and they both with Wally, they had tried to get Wally back several times, but it was always scheduling. And Bart was the same this time as well, where I think Jordan Fisher was just doing something on Broadway, maybe.
Okay.
But yeah,
Because I
and
know
it's
Nora
always
mentioned
unfortunate.
Bart at one point, and he used
Yeah.
the name Bart in that first episode.
And that's just the unfortunate reality of television like this, where things just happen like that. And Cisco didn't come back either, and it was literally the same thing. And people think it's just as easy as like, just have them record a video call, but you really can't. It's a whole, there's a lot that goes into it. It's not that easy.
What is the Cisco actor doing now? What did he do afterwards?
Yeah, I think he's just he's doing theater as well. He's just having a good time.
They all just went back to theater?
Yeah.
I know.
yeah.
I know. The big reason was Vancouver. A lot of them didn't want to live in Vancouver anymore, and they don't want to fly back to Vancouver to do it. I know that was a big issue.
Right.
Because I think they had a few actors just leave the show over that, didn't they? Where they couldn't get
I
other
know,
acting gigs.
Definitely. And then I know, like, at the very least, Hot Girls actress from all those years ago, she was not a fan of Vancouver at all. She was so happy to leave.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sure it's like, it's cold there. You see the same sets all the damn time. Like, just get out of there.
Yeah. So overall, I mean, you kind of said it already, but let's see here. Did you feel this was the finale you were waiting for? Because obviously we both were watching enough to know when it was going to end. It wasn't so, I mean, I've same thing as you. Since probably season 7, I've watched it off and on, came back for the cool scenes, maybe skipped a few episodes. I will say, I never felt like I missed anything when I skipped an episode or two.
No, not at all. I guess it was. I mean, it's not the finale I was hoping for. It's the finale that I should have known would happen.
Right.
I just, you feel bad about it at some point. It's like, well, surely the finale of all things, they're gonna give it their all, and then they do, but then they just like fumble right before the finish line. It's like, okay,
Right.
sure. You know what?
We didn't mention Caitlyn. Did you feel good about Caitlyn? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Caitlyn comes back. Just out of all 4 elements, just Caitlyn respawns back in Star Labs, and
I
mean,
also love that
nice,
she
I
doesn't even
guess.
act. She's like, I'm back, and that's it.
Right.
That's all.
Not to mention, like, they were not grieving her at all. They were sadder about Frost going away, which is crazy. But yeah, so I mean that was sweet. Still, it's so absurd that she was gone in the first place for Keone of all things.
Yeah,
like,
for Keone. That's what I still don't like Keone. I think Keone was a dumb plot point.
Yeah. I think the idea was that because they were going to do Blackest Night, and they would have brought in Netron. I think they were going to have it so she would have been the life entity equivalent. Because they couldn't do, I don't remember what it's called in the comic. I think it's just the life force.
It's the life entity. That's what. Yeah, because it's the White Lantern.
There's no special name or anything necessarily. But yeah, so I think that's the direction they were probably heading, and that sounds like the worst thing of all time. Maybe
they would have butchered the story. There's no way they wouldn't have.
So you know what? I'm glad we got out when it did. Arrowverse is over now, I guess. This new show
because Superman and Lois isn't in Arrowverse. That was confirmed, right?
And it's not in the Arrowverse anymore because they retconned it. They were scared of all the other shows being canceled. So, and then Doom Patrol has episodes to come out later this year. But that's it. And Superman and Lois is definitely not getting renewed at all. So yeah, once those two are over, it's done. I
just read an article that CW is getting rid of all the shows that cost money. So that's Superman and Lois and Gotham Knights. Actually, the guy in the interview was saying they're probably not going to redo that either. And the big reason is they don't have the streaming rights after they air it. So they don't have any afterlife of the show. And that's the big reason because it goes to HBO. It doesn't go to them.
Oh, yeah. So they do with Gotham Knights because that is a purely CW thing. But that is another problem with Superman and Lois. Yeah. They do stream it on the CW app, but then it does go on HBO Max. So it's a weird situation.
Yeah. So, and I guess they're going to be buckling down on just reality shows. That's all they're doing at CW now.
Because that's what they did with the writer's strike. Not the one right now. The one before this, like a few years ago, where all TV just shifted to reality shows instead. Because you literally don't need writers necessarily.
And they can't just stop airing things.
Yeah, and the CW has never been profitable, and it's all of its history. And they've accumulated a lot of debt. So it's sort of like the Warner Brothers situation. They just need to do whatever they can. And Superman and Lois their dilemma is that it's very high quality, but it's very expensive. But it's the only thing that gets their network any respect anymore. So I don't think it's going to be renewed. But yeah, that's unfortunate.
Yeah. So I'm sad to see this whole thing finally over. But on the other hand, I'm happy. Because Flash is like a remnant of old school broadcast TV. Like we don't get that anymore. We don't get high quality seasons on TV show. We like back in that day, The Flash was it. This was amazing. We don't get this kind of content.
It was innovative at the time. There had never been anything like it on TV before.
And now every other week Disney's putting something out. You know,
right.
Or HBO's putting something out.
When the full reboot was announced, it was like I was still a little sad to see everything go, and now it's like. Yeah, get it out of here then. Seeing the Titans finale and the Flash finale, it's like we needed James Gunn so bad. So bad.
I mean, MCU and DCU both need somebody so bad right now. I don't know what the MCU is doing. I'm hoping for Marvels to keep the Guardians trend.
They're doing.
Yeah. So overall, though, I mean, I'm happy and sad. It wasn't terrible. I went into it expecting this to be this quality. So, because a lot of people, when I made the video and comic story, they're like, oh, this was terrible and this was cringe. Like, yeah. And that was my argument with Hudson. It is cringe. It's terrible dialogue. It's terrible visual effects. That's what it's been for 9 years. It hasn't changed.
It took some of us a lot longer to catch up, but we're here now. So.
Well, anyway, thanks for joining me today, Neb. It was fun going through the 4 episodes with you. If you want to find out more what Neb has got going on, go check out Neb's Good Takes. He's got a lot of his opinions on the Flash movie on there. I don't think you've spoiled it, right? Because I've read your thread.
No, I haven't spoiled it, but I did see the Flash movie, so I wrote my own thread discussing my thoughts on it. And
yeah. So if you want to go check that out, go to Neb's Good Takes over on Twitter, and don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell right here on Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for joining us today, and we'll see you next time right there, right here, right. All right.
I got a lot off my chest. Yeah, that was good.
Ooh. Oh, all right. What did you guys in the chat think? You like it? Not like it? Get some quick opinions. Then I gotta go because we gotta do the next thing.
I appreciate the one Gotham Knights defender in the chat. It's funny. I watched the first Gotham Knights episode and it felt like it had a higher budget than anything else the network had done in a long time. But I just didn't keep up with it. I didn't do it.
I watched the first Gotham Knights episode, and if it wasn't Batman, I feel the show could have had a shot.
Right. If it was original characters, like an indie comic, it would have been just fine. But
I feel like half the episode was written well, while the other half wasn't.
Yeah, it's baffling. A lot of it was baffling. Like, you'd see something just fine, but then the protagonist had the worst acting you've ever seen. Carrie Kelly had an RPG. Like, it was crazy.
Yeah.
most chaotic show they've made in a while.
I don't think it's got any hope of getting good, but it's
No.
like I even tweeted, I'm like, it's just CW. If you've
Yeah.
liked the CW content, it's another CW project.
Yeah. I've been a little easy on it because I know it was the showrunner's like pitch. Basically, it was kind of her way of like dealing with her own loss of her dad in real life, and it's like, yeah, okay, yeah, it's like, you know, it still sucks, but it's not that deep. You know, it's just gonna get canceled and it's over, and it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
But
Gold. Don't see getting. Oh, Tevia's mistyping. Then it became
it did
Power
become
Rangers.
Power
And Wallace.
Rangers.
Yeah.
I mean, it is always sort of a little bit, but yeah, I noticed it was always sort of like when Power Rangers got to HD, it's like they suddenly stopped putting effort into the other things you have to do with the show, like set design and dynamic lighting, things like that. And Flash just sort of felt that way ever since they got the new showrunner. It was very strange.
So, but all right, guys, I guess we'll wrap it up here so I can go get ready for the D&D game. Thank you guys for joining us today. Monday we'll be back. I believe me and Sal are going to be talking about Spider-Verse, Into the Spider-Verse, because I don't think we're going to meet up early to do it. So I think it's just going to be the big thing on Monday, talking about Spider-Verse, Spider-Verse endings, all that kind of stuff. So make sure you check us out over here at 12 p.m. Eastern, talking about Spider-Verse stuff. Maybe we'll get Ned back. Did you see Spider-Man?
I'm saying it to me.
Okay, so we'll all see it and then see if we can work on something. Awesome. Cool. All right, guys. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time right here at Absolutely.